there. I'm your host, Leslie Randolph. I'm a self-confidence coach for teenage girls and the self-confidence coach you wish you had as a teen. Honestly, I'm the self-confidence coach I wish I had as a teen because I know I could have saved myself and my mother a whole lot of heartache if I'd only known then what I know now. I hope to save you some of that suffering by sharing the lessons I learned late in life right here on Why Didn't They Tell Us? Welcome to the show.
Hey, happy people. Welcome back to Why Didn't They Tell Us? So good to be back in a room with you and so excited for today's show. If you've been in my world for a while, then you know I am a believer, if not a walking, breathing billboard for the power of mindset. In fact, I think self-confidence is a mindset. It is a mindset that is rooted in knowing, loving, and believing in yourself and your ability to handle whatever comes your way. Mindset, like self-confidence, is both a choice you make and a skill you develop. But sometimes mindset is not enough. Or perhaps more accurately, there are barriers to developing that go-getter, feel better, yes, I can mindset. And today's guest is going to offer us insight into that, as well as some tips and tools to help us live fuller lives and to just simply feel better. Leah Davidson is a registered speech language pathologist and a certified life coach with more certifications and accreditations that I can likely squeeze into this episode, but I am going to try. She is a trauma-informed health and wellness coach, a professional resilience coach and consultant, a pain reprocessing therapy coach, a revelation breathwork facilitator, EFT practitioner, embodied processing practitioner, and a polyvagal informed performance coach. I bet there's more. Her work aims to help you befriend your nervous system, cultivate confidence and joy, and build resilience to work through everyday life challenges, as well as acute adversities that many of us face throughout our lifetime. Her passion for and knowledge of this work led her to create an advanced training in nervous system resilience, so she can now share her expertise with other coaches and helping professionals, as well as us today. Are you excited? I'm excited. Leah is an endless source of wisdom in processing emotion and cultivating emotional resilience, and I'm just delighted to have her on the show. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here with you.
I mean, clearly no one's more excited than me because, like I said before we got on the air, I was like, I think I need this episode as much as anybody else. So I can't wait to dive into it. But before we get into tools and techniques and tips, tell us your story. How did you get to be, this laundry list of credentials? How did you get here?
I am an avid learner. I just love learning, and I love taking my learning and creating and teaching and so forth. So, as you mentioned, I am a speech language pathologist, and that's really where I think I call it my love affair with the brain started. I've been working as a speech path for over 25 years, primarily in the area of traumatic brain injury, which required me to have a very deep understanding of the brain and what happens when there is injury to the brain. I was back in the time when I started where we didn't really understand neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity was around, but it was sort of used in academic terms. Clinically, we weren't telling people because we didn't know that the brain can rewire and change itself. We were sort of saying, oh, you're injured. Here's some strategies. Let's hope for the best. So I was, through my time as a speech pathologist, started understanding and seeing firsthand the power of neuroplasticity. I also, because as a speech path, most people think like, well, are you teaching people to speak again or to, and that is what speech paths do with some people. But in the area of traumatic brain injury, I worked in what we call cognitive communication, which is really all about how your communication and your cognition. So there was a big focus on things like attention and memory and executive function skills. And I started learning, working with people, teaching them strategies. seeing how mindset was a huge piece of it. Who is getting better? People believing who they can get better is a piece of it. It's not, by no means is it the be all and end all, but it certainly is a piece of it. But as I was working, I also started seeing that there's something else going on behind the scenes. Why are some people able to adapt different mindsets? Why are some people able to learn the strategies that I'm teaching them? And it came even further below the level, and it's the level of the nervous system. So I just, became aware of it, started doing my own work, and continued learning and learning and learning, and trialing it not only on people who had experienced brain injuries, but in my own life, what's going on with my own nervous system, learning about my own nervous system, which led me to eventually, in my own coaching, I was doing a lot of nervous system work to create the nervous system resilience advanced training. And I also have a membership called Connections, which is for everyday people to be learning about their nervous system. So that's where it all came about. So I'm like you. I adore mindset. I live and breathe mindset. But the question is, where does your mindset come from? How is your mindset shaped? What shapes your mindset? What lens? And that is the nervous system. The nervous system is the behind the scenes to your mindset. It's behind the scenes to everything that you do. And it is probably the most valuable investment you can make is into your nervous system, because it fuels everything else.
Which leads me to our first question, which could be the whole episode. This might be a two-part, folks. Like, what do you mean when you talk about nervous system? Because sometimes we have these great big ideas. Like, to me, nervous system feels so great and big. If you can boil it down for us so we know what it is we're talking about.
Yeah. And essentially, most of us, we know we have a nervous system. We probably learned about it in grade 10 biology, but we never really learned how does it function and how it works in our life. The nervous system is simply the way the brain and the body communicate with each other. It is the link of communication. The nervous system is running the show. It's monitoring everything you do. It's responsible for your survival. So the nervous system gets divided into different branches, and the branch that we're referring to, that we talk about when you hear people talk about the nervous system in general, you're talking about the autonomic nervous system, which essentially is what is taking care of your survival, your breathing, your digestion, your temperature regulation. So you don't have to be consciously monitoring. It is running behind the show. And what it's constantly doing is it's evaluating your level of safety in life to determine whether you are going to survive or not. So it is constantly scanning. It's working behind the scenes. It's looking at what is happening around you. It's looking at what is happening inside you, and it's looking at what is happening between you. And based on those cues that it picks up, it makes a determination of whether you are in safety or you are in danger. If you are in safety, then life just continues along. This is when we feel good. This is when we are on a roll and we're confident and we can access all the tools, including our brilliant prefrontal cortex. And we can think and be compassionate and curious. This is when we're on our best behavior, so to speak. But if it senses any type of danger, its role is a very protective role. And so it will try to protect you. And we want it to protect you because this is all about your survival. If it senses that it is in some type of danger, it will get activated. It will start to raise up the resources, draw on the resources so that you can do something. This is where our fight and flight system get activated so you can take care of your survival. And then if it senses extreme danger, it will either bypass the fight or flight, or it will try fight or flight for a period of time, get sort of, I can't make it this way, and it will come to shut down. Both areas is where the nervous system is trying to protect you for your survival. So it is working all the time. And depending on where you are assigned, I call it, are you assigned what I call the zone of resilience, which is where the nervous system is like, you're safe, you're good to go, everything's good. And there's like thoughts, feelings, emotions, mindset that rests within that zone. Now, if it assigns you, Leah, you're in danger and it's fight or flight, then everything you do is going to be flavored fight or flight. Your mindset is going to be flavored fight or flight. Your thoughts, your feelings, your actions are all going to have this quality of activation. And the same if you are in shutdown mode. Your mindset is going to be in shutdown mode. So it's interesting, your thoughts, feelings, and actions. It's interesting. Somebody's mindset can give you a window into where their nervous system is at, and their nervous system can give you a window into what mindset they're going to have.
And so when we think about some of the traditional mindset coaching, kind of lovingly poking holes in a story that we're telling, right? Some of the thoughts that we're thinking, if I'm understanding correctly, if someone's nervous system is activated, whether it is a perceived threat or a real threat, we're going to go with most likely perceived threat, right?
Majority of it, yeah.
That is, they don't have they won't have access to that ability to even
That's right.
lovingly challenge that story. That story is true, and
That's
it
right.
is, as we often say in coaching, it is a lion in the bushes and I'm gonna die, right?
Yeah. And what will happen is you poke the stories. They may be able to shift the story for a period of time, but it's not going to be a permanent change because it's not a story that can reside in that different state. So you may have different flavors of a story. I give the example of just a simple example. Depending on what state I'm in, I will tell certain stories. So if you say to me, Leah, I like your hair. Where did you get your hair cut? I didn't even do my hair today. It's pulled back in a ponytail. But if you said that to me, if I was in a state of hyperarousal, I call it team hyper, then I might say to you, why? What's wrong with my hair? You don't like it? Like there's a sense of defensiveness, a sense of, like accusatory, like there's some danger there. There's a flavor, there's an activation and an aggressiveness to it. Now, if I am feeling sort of really low and bad about myself and I'm in team hypo, I may say something like, I know it's terrible. I'm so embarrassed that I'm wearing my hair in a ponytail today. Don't judge me for that. That's going to be the flavor of the story that I tell. But if I'm feeling confident, I'm in team resilient, I may be like, thank you. Oh, I got it cut down on Queen Street. Her name's Gloria. Would you like her number? Like I'm going to have a much more measured response. I'm going to have a lens from which I view the world that is tainted by my nervous system. And that's why with mindset, I believe that you can't really access your mindset without understanding your nervous system. You can't take full advantage of the benefits of working on your mindset without looking deeper at what your nervous system is, because it's sort of like mindset ends up being, if we think of it like an iceberg, it ends up being the tip of the iceberg that we work on, but the nervous system is below. And so we want to be accessing it all. So I know sometimes people are like, oh, it's this coaching or that coaching, or it's mindset or somatic, or it's this. I'm like, it's all of it. We want to be doing all of it. That is where we will be able to create our fullest lives by understanding the nervous system and mindset, pairing it together. Oh, it's just magic.
So how does one start to do that? I mean, even to know, I have so many questions. First of all, I want to just tap on what you just said. That if I'm in hyperarousal, or what was the other one?
Hypoarousal.
How do we know? I mean, is that from any given day to day that we can be in one versus the other? And if we're chronically in one, is that because of a past trauma or, tell me
Yeah.
more about that.
So we are going throughout the day, up and down into different states all the time. A healthy nervous system, it's not necessarily a nervous system that is always in safety and always stable and always in what I call team resilient. A healthy nervous system is a nervous system that responds to things in an appropriate way and can flexibly move up and down, getting back to its homeostasis at any given point in time. So our goal is not to always feel good and be good and accessing. Our goal is to be able to navigate the ups and downs with confidence that we're always going to be okay. Like a healthy nervous system will allow you to dip into experiencing all the negatives of life without the panic of, oh my gosh, this is going to hijack me completely. So your nervous system started developing like in utero, and you were feeding off of what was happening with your mom. And then when you're younger, it's your caregivers, and you start getting exposure to other people in your life and experiences and cultural and society. And whether you experienced adversity or trauma, everything makes imprints along your nervous system. And along the way, you learn to adapt to whatever is going on in your world. So you start creating strategies and adaptations to survive in your world. And so people will create, some of them aren't the healthiest strategies. So you may learn to be in a more activated state because that is your survival based on your own personal history. And you remain in that activated state for periods of time. The challenge, like chronically, the challenge is your nervous system is not meant to be chronically in a dysregulated state. It's meant to peak and return. So most people will hit a certain point in their life. Either it will be a health challenge because your nervous system is not meant to be in activation. Maybe it will be a relationship challenge. Maybe it will be, mental, physical, where you start having this realization and your nervous system is basically saying to you, I can't keep this up. So I'm going to get you to pay attention to me, maybe through symptoms, maybe through pain, maybe through illness, maybe through relationship challenges. And you're going to pay attention to me. And I'm going to stop everything in your life. And that's when a lot of people find the nervous system, because they literally have hit a point of they can't keep going the way they've been going.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I keep hearing in my head, and predominantly if you're coaching people more of our contemporaries, is, I mean, and we're seeing this with burnout. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what's flashing for me is that
Yeah.
idea
Yeah.
of burnout. And
Yeah.
absolutely can show up physically of like, I physically cannot get to work today.
Right.
I
Yeah.
physically cannot do
Yeah.
these things.
And we have traditionally looked at burnout as being like you have too much on your plate, too much to do. But burnout is a nervous system problem. Burnout is there is no capacity to handle the things, and your system is literally saying, normally what happens is with burnout, we sort of go up and we try to deal with it. We try to overperform and overachieve and go. And we do that for a period of time, knowing that we can never satisfy. You can never satisfy this need. And eventually the system is just like, yeah, we just can't do this anymore. And it goes into that shutdown mode. And then burnout lives down in shutdown mode.
As you were describing it, I was just thinking about like, even like a motor, like you cannot be at 100 miles per hour forever. Eventually the car's just going to give out, right?
Yeah, yeah. I
And
use
that's
an
what,
analogy with my groups where we talk the whole car thing and there's a whole graph and a chart, and that's essentially it. And you have to be learning how to read what speed you're going so that you can make adjustments ongoing, just like when you're driving. Like we look at our speedometer to tell us, am I going the speed limit? Am I going too fast? Am I going too slow? You check to see, oh, this is I'm in Canada, so this is a 60 zone and you check and okay, I can go faster, I can go slower. How do I do that? Where do I, press? Where do I stop? Gas, brake. We play around with that. But you have to be monitoring it as opposed to just like whatever road you're on, just pressing the gas and going until you crash, which is what can work if you are happen to be on a highway that has a straightway. So that sometimes gets confusing too, is some of these strategies do work for a period of time. And so we adapt and we learn. But eventually what happens is the nervous system is not meant to be in a constant state. So it will shut down.
Of course, I'm trying on the tools that you're talking about, like the concepts in my own world. And for me, and I know I've talked about this on the show because, we had someone come on and talk about meditation, and I was like, and as I said to you, breathing was a new concept for me. I am someone who my lens and my programming and my life was very much you keep going, you keep hustling, you keep grinding,
Yeah.
you do it perfectly.
Yeah.
And it works for a really long
Yeah.
time. But what's so interesting, as I think about this too, and you think about safety, my body said, we got to slow down.
Yeah.
And then that felt really dangerous.
Yeah, for sure. It feels dangerous to slow down when you, like what you just described is somebody, very typically stuck in team hyper. And team hyper by society's standards usually gets a lot of good press. Like you're productive, you're achiever, you get things done. Like and what ends up happening, I'm a team hyper person as well, but what ends up happening is we gain our worth by that. So, I like to get the praise that, oh, how does she do it? She gets so much done. Like that feels good. But that, first of all, is not sustainable. And then second of all, you start to realize like, oh, it's actually a maladaptation that I'm doing it. There's nothing wrong with me for doing it. And I have received good things with it. And so when I learn, okay, I need to slow down, it feels dangerous to slow down because I never have slowed down. It feels dangerous to try to access that safety zone. So you have to do it, in very small baby steps. You have to build your capacity to do nothing and build your capacity to rest and build your capacity to whatever fill in the blank is that is going to help you get out of those dysregulated zones.
Because I always come back to mindset. And then also because you really tapped on it. And not only, of course, I can see it within myself and work that I'm continuing to do, forever a work in progress, but with the teens that I have the privilege to coach, right? Because there is this idea of getting the grade and being perfect on the field or, achieve. And there is this idea of exactly what you said. And that is my worth. And if I
Yeah,
don't have that, right? And so much of confidence is recognizing that your worth it's just you. Like you were born. You already
right.
got box
Yeah,
checked.
your
Your
worth
worth.
is yeah. I always say your worth is in being and not doing. Teens are also super unique because their brains are developing. Their CEO is on its way to develop. It's not, their CEO isn't fully developed until they're sort of in their mid-20s. So they are reading and relying a lot on the hopefully regulated adults around them, meaning they're relying on their parents, their coaches, their teachers to not just serve as a cognitive example that they know, oh, be like this person, but to serve as a nervous system. We call it co-regulation. When they are in your presence, are they feeding off a frenetic hyper energy? Or are they feeding off a confident, calm energy? If they're spending the day in school and their teacher is screaming their head off about what's going on in the classroom, that is sending a message to their nervous system of how to be and the level of safety. If they are surrounded by energy at home, that is also either a hyper or a hypo energy. You can say what you want to say, but our nervous systems are communicating and they will pick up on your nervous system and they are learning from your nervous system. We first learn about our nervous system through our caregivers. And that is the importance of, when people say, well, what can I do with my teen? And what can I do with my children? Nothing per se to your children. It is your work to do.
Yeah,
And if
they battle it.
you do your work, that will spill over into every single relationship that you have, especially the relationship with your kids.
Yeah. I often say, we we can talk till we're blue in the face, right? And my kids are not yet teens, but they're watching more than they're listening more often than not. And so they're seeing it. So yeah, when we can model it. Um, so so give us some tools and tips. We can start there. How do
Yeah,
we model it? Not just for the benefit of our kids, but ultimately what you're telling us, it's the benefit for us. I mean, I don't
right.
I know you didn't really even get into it, but like we're talking about chronic stress, we're talking about possible physical pain and
Mhm,
gut issues, and
mhm.
I'm sure there's just a laundry
All
list.
tied to the nervous system. Yeah, it's all tied to even the quality of your relationships is tied to your nervous system. It's everything. So the first step I really do believe is building the awareness of what is the nervous system. So like, learning like this. And I'm just giving you obviously just, very, very, very quick Sparks notes of it's the Sparks notes of the Sparks notes. So learning about you have a nervous system and it's important to learn about it. What is your nervous system? How does it work? And then getting really personal with what is your nervous system? What is it like being you? Like, what are the things that you have taken on as your adaptations, almost like that have created your personality? Because that is partly what shapes your personality is doing things over and over again. So identifying, what does it look like when you're in that hyper zone? Are you a perfectionist? Are you defensive? Are you aggressive? Are you worry? Are you filled with anxiety? And then what does it look like when you drop down into a hypo state? Are you somebody who has more of a victim speak mentality? Are you somebody that's more helpless or hopeless or feel lonely or bored? And then what are the things like what feels good for you when you're in that zone of resilience? Oh, that's when I feel more tolerant and more patient and more kind and willing to go the extra mile. So really taking getting a snapshot of what is it like to be you. And starting there is often like will change everything because you just have this realization, oh, I'm not broken. There's nothing wrong with me.
Yes.
This is
Yes. I
just how I've learned how to adapt and react. And I talk about like your brilliant little you. I brilliantly did that. And it has served me so well. But these things I'm noticing, maybe I can make a couple of adjustments to. And you start having that understanding and acceptance and compassion of who you are and why you are the way you are. You're not broken, you're just adapted. And now that I have this awareness, do I want to do something different? How do I want to live intentionally in my life? And what do I need to accept, change, modify in order to live that way that I want to live?
Yeah, you hit it on the head. I was thinking about that as you dive into that awareness to do so with such compassion. And I
Oh, yeah.
love what you just said of like, yay, you like you look at how brilliant you are that you've adapted in this
Yeah,
way. And
exactly.
you can stay here, but if we see things aren't working, there's another way. So I'm going to get really granular with you if I may. So if
Mhm.
we invite people to do this personal exploration, are you even thinking just like a pie chart, like, or just like columns of like hyper, hypo, resilient, and then just put in there like,
I mean, on a high level, yeah, I do. I walk people through a process where we talk about creating the menu. I mean, it is much more in depth than just that. I guide you through different questions because we want to look at different things. We want to look at like, how do you know you're starting to enter the stage? How do you know when you're in that? Um, and then we also sometimes want to tie it back to where did I come from that? Like, so it can be much larger than that. Um, but generally speaking, that is what we're trying to do. I haven't been talking about this, but in the late fall I have a journal coming out, and the journal is to help people in creating that, just to build that awareness, because that awareness is so important. And not that awareness that right away we're like, okay, now I need to change. No.
Right, because that could be scary, right? If I
Very
went and
scary.
noticed I have been going 90 miles per hour for years, it is actually probably more detrimental for me to then slam on the brakes. My
Exactly.
body is not equipped for that.
Yeah, exactly. So then it is a gradual process of, okay, I have to build up my capacity to slow down. How do I do that? Well, that's why you brought up things like meditation and breathing. These are all gateways into your nervous system. We have different ways we can access it. So building up your capacity to stop and just breathe for a few minutes, to stop and meditate for a few minutes, to stop and just rest for a few minutes, so that your body and your nervous system gets used to it, so it doesn't feel like scary. I'm just slamming, going from 100 down to 0. I'm sort of like, no, I'm hitting the brake, and then I'll come back up to speed. I'll hit the brake a little bit more. So we want to really introduce it in these sort of baby steps.
And I love what you had said too, of like one of the questions that you asked yourself was, how do I know when I am going into activation?
Yeah.
And I think of that so important because you've talked about, how this can really impact relationships. And of course, I'm always thinking about our teens and moms of
Yeah.
teens. And if they are watching us, if I feel, I'm gonna use rage because I feel like rage,
Mhm.
you feel it bubbling, it shows up in the chest like fire. And
Yeah.
before it comes out of your mouth to your teen, or if ever my teens are listening, before it comes out of your mouth to someone you love, like what can you do? And that's where Leah's so like, can I take a breath?
Yeah.
Our body is sending out signals of, again, what might then
Yeah.
come out into the world
Yeah, because
because
chances are whatever's going to come out doesn't have your thinking brain behind it. It has like that energy of whatever your nervous system is. So it's like going to have the voice of your nervous system state. And that probably is not going to be who you deliberately want to be, who you're
right,
trying to be. And that's why so often, like you think of every fight that you have with somebody, usually at some point, it's like, I didn't mean that. That's not what I meant. Like, I regret saying that. Well, that's not how I meant it. And it's usually because we're speaking and it's disconnected from what our thought is, from who we intentionally want to be, who we are really, who we are when we are grounded in that safety.
right. So, so beautiful. So we're going to start with awareness of just getting like a personal inventory of self and what does my nervous system look like? Because similar to mindset, like no two are the same,
That's
but just
right.
to recognize the patterns.
Yep.
And then if we want to dip our toe into some resilience, you have the word for it, and I don't even, this conversation's too good. I didn't put my notes in front of me. Nervous system resilience.
Yeah.
I would assume that. So from awareness, we then slowly want to up the resilience. What are
Yeah.
just some baby steps you would recommend?
Well, we want to slowly build our capacity to handle safety. So that means slowing things down if you are stuck in team hyper. And if you are in team hypo, sometimes that means adding some energy, upping some of the energy. And one of the best, simplest ways we do that is through breath, like you already mentioned. There's different breathing techniques that you can do depending on if you're in a hyper state. We're going to want to slow everything down with a longer exhalation. And if you're in a hypo state, you're going to want to speed everything up with quicker inhalations. So that's one. Movement is another way. Movement is such a powerful way to access our nervous system, to bring energy down when we're in hyper. Our goal is going to be releasing energy or softening energy. And so you can do that by doing activities that are going to require a lot more energy, running, swimming, jumping, walking, or softening, where I just talk about like doing sort of like a rag doll, just letting your muscles go, or doing some stretching. And then on the flip side, if you're in that hypo state, we want to be adding the energy. So we use movement to add the energy too, but it's not going to be like, we're going to add energy, let's go do a marathon. It may be, let's move from lying down to sitting. Let's move from sitting to standing. Let's do some very, very slow movements, stretching, Tai Chi, yoga, because we're moving things very slowly and softly. And so from going from 0 to 100 may be too much. Although for some people, they do feel, you know what, if I'm feeling really low and I stand up and I start, dancing around or I start shaking about, that brings me energy. That's why it's important you get to know yourself, because I can give you a list of things. Some of it won't work for you. It's important to understand the concept behind it, and then you can start creating your own tools. That's why it's hard to, when people say, well, how can I do this? I don't know. If you understand the concept of it, it's trial and error. This works for me. That works for me. Because the same thing can work for somebody, and the same thing can send somebody back into dysregulation. So it's individual.
Yeah. And I would also, based on what you said of how this is always fluid, some days it might feel different, right?
Oh, for
Um,
sure. Every
and
day will feel different. Yeah.
right. And some days, dancing in my kitchen will be the prescription I need, where
Yeah.
other days meditation would be the perfect fit, right?
Yeah.
And so I think it's not just trial and error, like here's my menu moving forward. I always come back to like self-trust of like, what do I need today?
That's right.
What do I need
Asking
right
yourself.
now?
Yeah. And having enough tools in your toolbox. I think that's the value of learning. And that's one of the reasons I think why I'm so passionate about learning and developing. You laugh. I take trainings and courses all the time because I love filling my toolbox up with things and then merging them with other things and creating different things, because I need different tools at different stages and times of my life. And we all do. And the more tools we have available and the more we know, it's not just having the tools, collecting the tools, but it's having them and knowing them, what to do and when to use them and what benefit they bring me. That's like the best investment I think you can ever make.
You're preaching to the choir here.
I
I'm
know.
right there with you. I mean, and now I think of you as a tool. I'm just going to have you in my toolkit. I feel so thankful for it. One of the other things I was thinking about, and I didn't realize nervous system. This is really it. When a mom or an adolescent are trying to have a conversation, I always say like when they're in it, I think about full circle going back to mindset. When you're in it, that is not a time for trying to challenge the story, for trying to find a new perspective. That is a time for these tools that Leah is talking
That's
about.
right. Yeah.
We don't go up here, we come here.
Yeah.
Of
You have to
how do I
regulate before you
right,
address any of the stories. Yeah.
right,
Which is why you'll find with many people, they do get stuck. They can't change their mindset. They can't change their thought. It's not like they can't intellectually, I don't know how. Your brain does not have the capacity to make changes in your thoughts when you are dysregulated, when you are activated. You don't have access to your thinking skills. That's not a choice. It's not just if you got better at mindset, you'd be able to do that. If you work much harder, no, this is biology. When you are activated, you have limited access to your thinking skills. And that means you'll have limited access to your thoughts. So you have to take care of your nervous system first. Once you take care of your nervous system, that's the gateway into everything else.
no, what incredible work you do, and I'm so thankful to have some of this knowledge, and I am so excited to see this journal. So
Yeah.
please, can you let everyone know where to find you so that when this journal comes out and all the goodness that you offer, they can
Absolutely.
reach you?
So I am on Instagram and Facebook at Leah Davidson Life Coaching. My website is leahdavidsonlifecoaching.com. I have a podcast called Building Resilience. So that's where you can hear me talk about a lot of this stuff and then get updates on things like my courses, my membership, my journals when they come out. So I'd love to see you there.
Wonderful. And anything else to close out the show? Was there a greatest hit of yours that I didn't touch on? as we say goodbye for the day?
No, I always like to just really, really drive home with people that you're not broken, that this is your nervous system has brilliantly taken care of you over the years. And as you grow and learn more about yourself, you can develop the capacity to do things a little bit differently that maybe will feel not great at first, but in the end will help you feel like you can handle more things. That's why I call it nervous system resilience as opposed to regulation. Regulation sort of implies getting somewhere and I'm going to be regulated. Resilience, by nature of what resilience is, it is the ebb and flow, it's the up and down, it's the peak and the, I talk about it's the bending and not breaking, it's the strength and the falling apart. And that is essentially who we all are. We are that beautiful mixture. And just having your nervous system, getting to know it, allows you to be so much more compassionate to yourself and so much more compassionate to the people in your life, and also allows you to set healthier boundaries and to be more assertive, be more intentional in your living. I can't say enough good things about the nervous system.
I love all of it. I'm so thankful to have you in the world and the work that you're doing, and what a gift you gave us all today. So, Leah, thank you so much for coming on the
You're so
show.
welcome.
All right, my friends. Till next time.
Love what you hear? Well, I'd love to hear from you. You can find me at confidencecoachforgirls.com. That's confidencecoachforgirls.com. Or email me at lesliethelifecoach@gmail.com. That's lesliethelifecoach@gmail.com. Hope to hear from you.